Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build MLB edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We are here to help you go over the MLB DFS slate at DraftKings for Tuesday. The goal here is to help you win. If anything we do here helps you, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And right now you can join our free Discord link in our YouTube channel, so definitely take advantage of that. And we also have a website up, www.dfsbuild.com, so you can check that out. All of our content right now is free. All right, let's get into it. Here we go, game by game, looking at the pitching and the stacks and just kind of going over who we like and who we don't. First up, we have a game at Fenway. Tomoyuki Sugano taking on the Red Sox, Godspeed, and then Walker Buehler taking on the Orioles. Doesn't look much better over there for him. Both these teams do come in with nice projected totals. So I'm not interested in the pitching, although I will say Buehler at 5.5K as an SP2 punt against what should be a chalky Orioles offense is a little bit interesting. What say you?
No, not really. Just, I don't know if you really need direct leverage on a 12-game slate. Sort of just seems kind of like getting too cute to me. There is cheap pitching that's not going to be comfortable, but I think it looks a little better than Buehler elsewhere. I'm much more on the Orioles. I really like, they could be chalky. They have cheap stuff. Dylan Beavers, Samuel Basayo, like two rookies who just came up, two good prospects who are very cheap. So that kind of helps offset the cost of guys like Henderson and Holiday, Westberg, if he's in the lineup. They'll be popular, but with the Dodgers and Coors, I don't think they're going to be like, super chalk by any means. So still very in Baltimore. I think it's a very good stack in a good park against a bad pitcher. So fine with it. Thanks to the cheap stuff. Beavers in particular is a major standout for me, I think, today. Sugano is not good, but I'm also not really getting to a ton of Boston. It's just a more expensive stack. I think there are better stacks to pay up for on this slate, namely the Dodgers, of course. So while Sugano has a lot of downside, I just think I'm not really planning on stacking Boston. I much just prefer the cheap Baltimore side of this game.
Yeah, I was saying the Buehler thing kind of in jest just because you could get leverage there, but I'm with you. I'm definitely going offense only. I'm not playing Sugano, that's for sure, personally. Boston and Baltimore both look really good. A lot of lefties going at Buehler. I guess he doesn't give up as much power to the left side, but I'm not really that concerned. Splits just do not look good for either pitcher, so both offenses are certainly in play. And just like you kind of said this yesterday, just by default with a Coors game, especially the Dodgers in Coors, like they're not going to be super owned no matter who you use outside of that game. All right, Shane Smith taking on the Braves, going to face quite a few lefties here. That's not great. Not the best K rate, 10% walk rate, 170 ISO against lefties. Not the best thing going up against Atlanta. Bryce Elder on the other side going against Chicago. Apparently, if Strider can't handle the White Sox, I don't know how we can be so hopeful about Elder. I never like playing him. Obviously, the matchup isn't terrible, but it also isn't what it used to be. So for me, I don't mind getting to the White Sox on a 12-game slate. I don't feel like I have to do that. For me, it's probably just Braves or bust, but I think you can certainly give Chicago a look.
Yeah, I don't mind either side. I think a couple of, mediocre pitchers. Elder's obviously worse than Smith. But I kind of just think, obviously, the Atlanta lineup has more thunder in it now that Acuna is back. So I don't have an issue with Atlanta. I think it's more of a secondary stack. Chicago, I like a little bit more, just given the matchup and the salaries on like Talkman. Caro's cheap, Mydroth is cheap, Vargas, like they're all cheap. So if you're like worried about Baltimore cheap chalk, then maybe the White Sox are a good pivot. I do have some Elder, like 15% right now. Kind of just a product of the 6K salary, hoping you can get through some easy innings, against the White Sox. He does have decent ground ball stuff, especially against righties. So I'm okay with Elder. If it helps you get Dodgers, like a full Dodgers stack, it's fine. Not excited about it, but I think it's viable in large field stuff.
I mean, if Bryce Elder is in play, how is Walker Buehler not in play? I don't know. They both feel really bad, personally. I don't really want to do it. And honestly,
the matchup is better for Elder than Buehler.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just think I will probably be going away from the Dodgers on this slate. Big slate. They're not the only team that's going to wreck or projects really well. So just naturally. And of course, they'll get 12 runs because that's just the way it goes. All right, Yankees in Florida here. Carlos Rodon taking on the Rays. That looks like a pretty good spot for him. Not the best strikeout matchup, but it's not terrible. The Rays are going up against Shane Baz. He does strike out lefties, does not handle righties quite so well, and this park is pretty good for offense. I have no interest in Baz going up against the Yanks. I don't mind playing Carlos. His price, I think, is a little hefty, though. Was he at 10K flat? Like, I think it's okay. But the strikeout matchup just isn't like super, super appealing.
Yeah, I'll have a lot more Baz than anything else in this game. Just kind of, he's 7,700, so he's cheap. He's had a 29% strikeout rate over the last month. He's been erratic overall, so, I wouldn't be shocked if he shat the bed here, but the Yankees do strike out when you add guys like Stanton and Jazz and McMahon to the lineup. Judge hasn't really been right since he got back from the injured list either. So I do think Baz in tournaments is a super good play if people are going to be scared to roster him. Minor interest in the Yankees. I just think if I'm paying up for a stack, it would just be the Dodgers by default. Ownership be damned. Tampa Bay, I don't mind like power hunting against Rodon, the righties in particular. Caminero, Yandy Diaz, Everson Pereira is still cheap. Ha-Seong Kim is cheap, could lead off. So Tampa Bay mini stack, I think, is okay, but I like Shane Baz quite a bit.
Yeah, we're going to have to part there. Like, I don't really want to target the Yankees in this park. The price is good for Baz, for sure. And he does have a high K rate sometimes. But he hasn't topped 18 fantasy points since like July 1st or something crazy. So I don't feel amazing about him. I think there's just other things to do. If the Yankees are going to be unowned, we say this all the time, like if there's a good high upside offense, like they don't project all that well. I will say that the projection is under 4. So it's not like it's amazing, but if they're not going to be owned and Baz is going to pick up like 12, 15% ownership, maybe, then the Yankees do look a little bit interesting if they're going to kind of fly under the radar a little bit. Athletics, who I always like, no matter what, they take on the Twins in Minnesota. The wind's blowing out here. Decent hitting park, and they're facing Joe Ryan, which is not necessarily ideal. Nothing really looks that bad for Ryan. I guess on the left side, the power and the strikeouts do dip a lot. But he's going to face mostly good righties here. Like they do have a good mix, honestly. They got Kurtz, they got Soderstrom from the left side, Lawrence Butler, and of course Rooker from the right side. So it is a little bit of a mix, but I do tend to favor the Joe Ryan side here. Just whiffing righties like crazy at a 33% clip on the year, not giving up power at all to the right side either. So if he can handle the lefties, Joe Ryan looks pretty good. On the other side, Jacob Lopez against the Twins. Their lineup, as we know, has been decimated from trades, so they do not look that scary. The projection here makes him look like an interesting play. I don't trust him nearly as much. I'd rather play Ryan, but what are your thoughts there?
I like them both. Ryan, I have in around a quarter of my lineups as of now. Just good strikeout pitcher. We know the A's will strike out a decent amount, so it's a good spot for him. The lefty power, though, I still like against him, like Kurt, Soderstrom, Butler, like you mentioned. Brett Harris is right-handed, but he's cheap. So kind of playing both sides of that. Lopez, I do have interest in as well. He's still a little bit underpriced, 8,200. You can argue for the strikeouts he's shown. 29% over the last month, 28% for the season. And he's getting strikeouts against right-handed hitters as well. So there's potential here. I think the Twins are okay for power hunting, like Byron Buxton, always. Royce Lewis, always cheap because he's been horrible, but he's cheap. Austin Martin, if he hits leadoff, I would have a lot of interest in. If he's hitting ninth, maybe not so much. But you can kind of make a case for everyone in this game. I think Ryan would be my favorite, but that'll be everyone's favorite. But you can certainly stack against him with the lefties in particular.
Yeah, I agree. I think the interesting thing with Ryan is in 7 of his last 9 games, he's topped 19 fantasy points. So he's been super consistent with a decent ceiling. Obviously, from the right side, this matchup looks great. But, I mean, he's going to be like 22% owned. So while I do really like Joe Ryan, I feel like Joe Ryan, like chalk, just never works for whatever reason. So I also tend to love the Athletics with all that power. I do not mind a mini A's stack or even a full stack in your non-Joe Ryan lineups. I certainly will be playing them a little bit because I always do. All right, Merrill Kelly taking on the Royals. in KC. On the other side, we got Seth Lugo taking on the Rangers. Lugo, I think, got absolutely obliterated in his last game. So, I mean, Texas is a pretty good bounce back spot for him. Not an elite K rate matchup, but it's fine. And, just in general on the year, they have not been an offense that we are very afraid of. KC, on the other hand, a lot of talent, a lot of ability, but they just also kind of just underwhelmed, like for the most part this year. This feels like kind of a either way spot. Like I'm not super attracted to this on a 12-game slate.
I don't really have a lot in this game. I think Texas hitters would be the one thing I like a little bit. I don't know what's happened to Lugo. Lefties have kind of gotten to him all year, but over the last month, like since he got a new contract, he's just kind of mailed it in. Strikeouts are way down. The walks are way up. The power is way up. He's allowing a WOBA of over 400. Kind of everything going wrong. And lefties in general have had success. So Texas, while bad overall, still does have Corey Seager. They still have Rowdy Tellez, Josh Smith, Jock Peterson off on the left side, Evan Carter. So there's some stuff there I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind at all. I'm kind of like interested in going both ways a little bit, but when you look at his ISO 226 to lefties, strikeout rate dipping by 4% to lefties, and then also his game log, 13, 6, -9, -5. Like he's been in poor form for sure. So I don't mind Texas, but as we all know, like the Rangers aren't like an offense we feel super excited to fully stack. But Lugo, I don't think he's carrying much ownership, but it just is it looks like a good spot at this point. So I'm with you. We can totally do that if we want to. Woody taking on the Cubs in Chicago. The wind is blowing in, so we should be okay. Jameson on the other side against the Brew Crew, who just have been on fire all month. I don't necessarily want to pick on him with the wind blowing in, but you certainly could keep playing the Brewers here if you wanted to. Do not have a ton of interest in the Cubs other than the fact that Woody is going to pull about 22% ownership. Like, this is just what happens when it comes to the Cubs for me. If the wind's blowing in and nobody's on them, or they're facing a good pitcher that maybe you want to use, then they'll explode. Like, they've been terrible lately. On paper, I think the pitching is okay. Woody's like, 10-5? Like, that doesn't feel great to me. I'd rather play Rodon or just go down to Joe Ryan or somebody else. But you can because the wind's blowing in.
I don't really understand that. I feel like it should be 0% owned at salary after throwing. Really I don't know, said you were very gold there. He threw 65 pitches in his last game. I don't think you can really mess with that at that salary. Like if he's limited again, that just seems like a super bad play. And it's not, okay matchup, not an amazing one. I just don't really see the need to spend that salary on him.
Yep, agreed. What about the other side?
Nope, nothing there either.
All right, moving on here. We do have the Dodgers in Coors. They naturally have the best implied run total of the slate. Emmett Sheehan taking on the Rockies, and then Austin Gumber, who we love to pick on, and it never works out, is facing LA. Like, obviously, the numbers are really, really bad for whatever reason. Anytime we see him and feel good about it, what he does, like nothing. He like gives up 1 run over 5 innings or something stupid. That said, the Dodgers do look great, and it is Coors Field. If you want to play the Dodgers and, of course, Colorado as well, you're more than welcome to do so. There's nothing really going against it. I think on a 12-game slate, though, I'm just going to look elsewhere and hope that they don't completely nuke.
I'm looking at everything except Gomber in this game. Like, the Dodger lineup will be better tonight with Will Smith back in it. Last night, it was kind of just a miserably bad lineup once you get past the first 4 or 5 dudes. The bottom is still thin with guys like Rojas, Kennedy, and Call, but the top should be stronger. I have more faith in them tonight than I did yesterday against Freeland. I just think Gomber's a worse pitcher overall. I like Sheehan a good amount as well. 6'7" is cheap. He's in Coors, so like there's obvious risk, but he is a decent strikeout pitcher. The Rockies are mostly right-handed, and they strike out at a decent clip even at home. So Sheehan as a cheap play, I think is a pretty good one. And this morning when I ran stuff, Colorado was my highest owned stack. So totally playing both sides of that. Just kind of a cheap-ish stack overall with guys like Tovar still underpriced, Moniak still under 4K. There is stuff to like with the Rockies as well. So I'll have a lot more of them than I did last night.
Yeah, Sheehan is coming at like what 6'7", so I think it's totally viable, especially when you factor in the splits there. The park thing is just scary. It is what it is. And on the Dodgers thing, it's like I'm not fading the Dodgers just to fade the Dodgers. It's just more about like an ownership thing, and I wouldn't fade them. I'm just going to come in underweight. Next up, we have the Reds against the Angels. Hunter Green, who is one of my favorite plays of the slate, and Kyle Hendricks on the other side against the Reds. Certainly, we can attack Kyle Hendricks. He's a lot like Austin Gomber, and the fact that like he always looks attackable, and it just very rarely works out for whatever reason. But the numbers look good in as far as like doing that. Hunter Green, great K rate, does not walk anybody, does have some power issues from the left, but guess what, buddy? The Angels do not have any power from the left side, so he looks awesome to me. Not the best park for pitching, and it is still a very talented and powerful offense if they are feeling it. But Green, to me, it looks really, really good. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I assume he'll be the chalk SP1 at 9K. Hadn't pitched in 2 months until his last start through 85 pitches, so he's pretty full from a leash standpoint. The Angels strikeout. Green's a great strikeout pitcher. The control stuff that plagued him early in his career is no longer really a thing. So no issue with it. I think he'll be my highest owned pitcher. I think he'll be everyone's highest owned pitcher, and it's a good play just because he's underpriced. I think Hendricks is viable in the same way Bryce Elder's viable. 6,200, not a good pitcher, but the Reds are not a really good offense either. So I don't mind rolling the dice on that. And that's kind of it. Like you can play against Hendricks with the Reds, but not really for me tonight.
How do you feel about an Angels leverage stack? Because Green is coming up, pushing 30% ownership. Just his second game back, like you said. A few games ago, he did have some struggles. I mean, like, is it just, do you think it's getting cute, or do you think that is something we should be considering more?
It's probably getting too cute. I just think on a slate this big, you can kind of play the best plays because beyond the Dodgers, the ownership's going to be pretty spread out. Mm-hmm. Dodgers and maybe Orioles on the hitting side. So, I understand stacking against a guy who may be 50% owned, but probably don't need it tonight.
Yeah, like in my opinion, I think like something like the Athletics with their lefties against Joe Ryan with his clear splits, like I think that is something that it's a little bit more evidence-based. Like you're seeing something that is actually giving you reason to believe this could blow up and go the other way. Whereas, I mean, Green's just dominated righties, man. So like if that's what the A's or the Halos have out there, it just doesn't look like the best spot. So cue the Angels getting 15 runs. All right, Tanner Bybee taking on Arizona Diamondbacks. We know they're a little bit watered down after some trades, but they still look pretty good here. 193 collective ISO going up against righties. Tanner Bybee has problems against lefties. They do have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lefties to throw at him. Not great. Don't love that for him. Erod on the other side against the Guardians. They have been horrendous against Southpaws all year long. I guess the pitching is okay here, but I do like Arizona quite a bit because the splits look favorable for them.
Yeah, I'm not really getting to Arizona. I see why you would. Like the top 3 in the order, Carroll, Perdomo, and Marte are going to be pretty good. So that's fine. I don't hate that. Marte, like second base is always a tire fire. So like he's kind of the best thing by default most nights. Mm-hmm. As of now, though, I didn't hear you again that time.
He's also super expensive every time.
Yeah. Well, he's the only good second baseman, so I guess they make him worth it.
That's true. It's true.
I do have more of the pitching, though, in this game. I just think both are decent and both are cheap. So, Cleveland, like you said, has been bad against lefties. Erod, while bad himself for the most part, still does have some strikeout stuff. And Cleveland just really is not an imposing offense. They don't hit for a lot of power. They strike out a good amount these days. Austin Hedges is in the projected lineup, which is always a boost. So Erod reluctantly is someone I like a good amount. Bybee, similar situation. I think he's just kind of cheap for his upside. We've seen the strikeouts tick up again over the last month. He has not been great at all season for whatever reason. But I don't mind taking a shot on him against a watered down Arizona lineup.
Yeah, I mean, 24% K rate, it's okay. And a 7.5K price tag for Bybee. I get it too from the other side. I do like Arizona side more. If Bybee's ownership is going to pick up a little bit, so like what, 10%, then I would be into that even more than I already am. All right, last game of the night, the Padres hosting the Giants. Kaiwei Tang taking on San Diego. They look like the side I would pick between the two for sure. Not really a great park for hitting or anything, but the Padres look pretty good. 163 ISO against him, and they do not strike out, so I certainly don't want to play him. Nick Pivetta, though, on the other side against the Giants, he does look good. Nice K rate, not walking anybody, only giving up power to the right side. They do have a little bit of power, but they also have some strikeouts, and it is a pitcher park. So I do not mind ending the night with Pivetta at all.
Yep. Like him quite a bit. He's a little more expensive in green, so I don't think he'll be as popular, but I do still expect him to get some ownership, and I think it's justified. Plenty of interest in Pivetta. Tang, I think you can play as a punt. The issue is he's not good. The Padres don't strike out. So it's kind of just Pivetta or nothing for me in this game.
Yep, I am on board with that. All right, that is going to mostly do it for us. Do you want to run through a lineup, or are we short on time?
We can do it if you want.
All right, so if you're going to, we're just using Roto Grinders as an example. We can set some build rules here. I typically do 3 unique players. Do you have any different advice as far as setting rules there?
Depends on how aggressive you want to be. If you want to add some randomness in there to give you a little bit of leeway on the median projections, I don't think that's a bad idea. Increasing the uniques is okay. You're just going to kind of run thin on lineups pretty quickly, I think, based on their optimizer. So 3 is probably fine for now.
All right, what do you think a good starting point for max pitchers is? I usually put it at 70 or 75% just to see what I get first.
Yeah, on a slate like this where it's sort of obvious, like Hunter Green, you're going to want a lot of. I think maybe like 50 or 60. I generally don't want to go too high above 60 unless it's like a really obvious situation.
All right, so we can go ahead and go in 60. Same with our SP2, I'm assuming. And then we could probably go there for now and just run it and see. Actually, we'll go look at stacks. I usually do 5X. Do you want to do something different for a 12-game slate? I think that probably 5-3 is also in play for a big slate. What are you thinking?
Yeah, on a bigger slate, you kind of favor more correlation because you're kind of wanting to nail the teams that are going to go off. So like a 5-3, 5-2, those are fine.
Let's do a 5-3, 75% and just roll with that just to show what you can do in here as far as it always takes forever to. And of course, I have a leaf blower behind me again. I don't know. They've been by my door like 5 times today. So
I think you're going to want to also present the right tab. You're showing FitIQ right now.
That is correct. So let me go back and share that so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm in here in the lineup optimizer. So you couldn't see that. So what I did here, went into the stacks, and we put 75% at 5-3. That is just giving you maximum leverage if your full 5-man and 3-man hit. You can also play around with the exposures to your first and second stack here. And then in the build rules, we hit 3 unique players for every lineup, 60% max exposure for our pitchers. And right now we kept it 100% for the different hitting positions because just for the sake of expediting this a little bit because it's already slow build. Before that materializes, though, why don't you just tell everybody while we're waiting what your number 1 pitcher to build around is and your favorite stack on the slate, maybe outside of the Dodgers.
Yeah, it's obviously Hunter Green. Like, if you're playing Hunter Green and the Dodgers, that's fine in like single entry, but probably going to be insanely owned. So be cognizant of that. I think pairing the Dodgers with the Orioles is also going to be popular because Baltimore has obvious value, cheap value bats in a good spot. So maybe that combination is one you want to avoid. Like if you play the Dodgers, maybe secondary stack them with the Twins or the A's or the White Sox or somebody like that. I think my favorite non-LA, non-Baltimore stack probably is the White Sox. Just they're cheap. You can kind of pay up for other stuff if you want. Even if you're not fully stacking the White Sox, still getting a 2 or 3 man, I think looks pretty good.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that does sound pretty good. I am kind of mostly just looking at like 3 or 4 pitchers, and because I kind of want to get away from Coors in general because of how chalky it might be, I think I'm just going to pay for both pitching spots on this slate and try to get some of these under the radar offenses, because we talked about the Rangers earlier. They're going to be a little bit cheap. Chicago's going to be a little bit cheap, and just hope that a 5-man of one of these lower owned offenses is going to end up hitting. This is almost ready. We're not going to go do another example of this because this is building so slowly for us right now, but we're almost there. Just to give you an
stop
idea.
it right now, can't you?
Yeah, I could actually. That's a good point. Anyway, so what it turns out here, this is the optimal that they're giving us is actually not a 5-3 man, which is really helpful for what we're doing. Let me see if one actually pops up here. Not seeing one yet. I'm not going to run it.
You did 75% 5-3, so the ones that project better are just going to be at the top because you're sorting by projection, I think.
Right, for sure. Anyways, the other thing here, if it was a 5-3 man, if you did 100%, you're just going to see all those stacks. I think one thing you can do is go in. One thing we talked about is go in and you can look at the ownership. So here we have 64% ownership, although this ownership is not. This must be updating at the moment. So don't really pay much attention to this number, but you can pay attention to it when it's actually current. Like when all the players do have correct updated ownership numbers, you can go in and try to could play the optimal, whatever it gives you, the number one lineup. You could do that, or you could try to, especially if you're going to use a chalky offense and or chalky pitchers, go work down the list a little bit possibly and look at that number and see if you can get a comparable team with a similar projection that also isn't nearly as owned. Is that something you also like to do?
Yeah, just kind of one way you can use that optimizer is by sorting by projection and then looking at the total sum ownership, which they have there. Obviously, you said the figures right now on the page are not accurate, but generally, so the top lineup there, 115.49. Obviously, take MLB projections with a grain of salt because hitter projections are quite fragile. But for something like NBA maybe or NFL, you look at the total fantasy points and then the total sum ownership. So the first one right now, just in the example, has 64%. The one below it has 46%. So if I'm building a multi-entry set, I would keep scrolling down and I would want to find another lineup that would be at least or at most 46% owned. And then I would just X out the lineups that are projecting worse, but also projecting to be higher owned. So that one's 46. So I'd keep the third one there. I would X out the fourth one because it was like 51% ownership. So it projects for more ownership and projects worse. And then you keep kind of trimming that way based on the ownership and kind of build yourself it's a pretty rough methodology. Like it's not precise or anything like that. Obviously it's projected ownerships and projected fantasy points, but it is a decent way to whittle down a portfolio of lineups that has decent diversity while also not eating too much ownership at the top.
Okay, and what do you, to close things up here, for people who play single entry in MLB, you can still use this process, I think, and kind of actually play into it a little bit more. What do you suggest there if they have their optimal, but it is at a high ownership percentage? Do you suggest running something differently, or do you suggest kind of just tweaking it manually?
I think you can just kind of whittle it down the same way I was doing with multi-entry. Like I ran a 5-3 build on my side here, and it has a 5-man Baltimore and a 3-man Dodgers with Pivetta and Green. That's going to be a very high-owned lineup with 3 unique players. The next lineup that comes up is a Sheehan Green lineup with a pretty low-owned White Sox 3-man and a Dodgers 5-man. So kind of playing on there, like Baltimore and LA will be a very popular combo like we talked about. I don't think the White Sox plus the Dodgers are going to be like quite as popular. And in a single entry where you don't need the ultimate nuts because it's a smaller field, everyone's only entering once, you can eat more ownership. So I think you can play, like I said, a Baltimore Dodger stack, but I think I would kind of try to fade one of those teams to get a chalk stack with the lower owned stack and then eating some more ownership at pitching.
Right. I mean, obviously, like all the chalk can hit on a given slate, but it's just you're more likely to dupe and get held back if you're not differentiating a little bit. And like you also said, like especially if you're not playing the Dodgers, you don't need to worry about it that much in terms of just ownership. At that point, you probably would be putting much greater emphasis on just what your actual overall projection is looking like. But just a couple things to keep in mind as you're building with this or whatever other tool you have. You're just going to want to incorporate those things, especially if you're entering a lot of lineups. But that is going to do it for us. Hopefully this helps you out a little bit. If it does, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You can join our free Discord linked below here, and you can check us out at www.dfsbuild.com. Thanks for watching and good luck.